Today we're going to look at analyzing the relationship between language and power. Now we all know that language empowers, and for that reason, vocabulary building is a very, very important part of your course and of your personal studies. It is a critical part of education to improve your vocabulary. Because to expand your language, what does it mean? To expand your language, to expand your knowledge of the language and of your vocabulary, is to expand your ability to think. So I want you to go and think about that yourself. Your increase in language ability can increase your ability to think. Because language has the power to transform experiences. It can connect us to the past and to the future. It can spark our imagination, and it can connect us to one another. Language can do all of these things. So, let us look at this concept in more detail. When we ask ourselves, who has power within a certain situation, and why does that person have more power, there are a few things that we need to look at. Some people have more power than others because of the situation, because of the context itself. It's just a given. For instance, if you in an interview, the interviewer in a way has more power because the interviewer can steer the situation in any way that he or she wants. During interrogations, the police official or whoever does the interrogation will have the power to steer the conversation. A judge, for instance, in a courtroom will have a lot of power just because of the fact that the person is the judge in the courtroom, is the boss in the courtroom, and he can also steer the situation. But we must also know that language proficiency, how good you are at language, how you can use language, can place you in a powerful position, despite the fact that the situation is perhaps very powerful where a certain person has more power. If you are very proficient in language, you can counter that situation to a great extent. So in that way, it is very powerful. But a lack thereof, on the other hand, can place you into a situation where people might think that you're of a lower social standing, or it might just reveal that you're in a lower social standing. It might give away your level of education, and it can really put you into a disadvantaged position if you cannot talk yourself out of something or have the necessary language to deal with a situation that you might find overwhelming. Now, I'm going to read you a little extract from a courtroom scene in To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, I'm going to give you a little background first. To Kill a Mockingbird, of course, is set in the 1930s, and where everybody was poor. And in this little town of Macomb, in the southern part of America, everybody was poor because it was Depression time. Everybody was poor. However, in this town, there were very definite social groupings. Now, the social groupings could be distinguished by their, or just recognized by the way in which they used language. It was a very important way of distinguishing the various groups. Now, at the top, you would find the intellectuals. By the way, they were also poor because the rest of Macomb was poor. So despite the fact that they were poor, they had this intellectual capacity, they had the language, And the intellectuals like Atticus Finch and the doctor, Atticus Finch is a lawyer and then the doctor, they were in like a group of their own. The majority of the town were common folk and they were farmers. And they, of course, were a grouping of their own. They like the middle class of the town. We had a very special other group, which was the coloured group, or the black people of Maycomb. They lived on their own, in their own little settlement, but they were upstanding people, very religious, a group of their own, and they also spoke in a certain way. And then, of course, at the bottom right there were the Ewells, for instance, the scum of the earth, if you like, if you want to call them that. They were the lowest class, and they also behaved in that way, and they also spoke in that way. So we had these very specific groupings there. Now, in this court scene, we are talking about power positions and language and where that makes you stand or gives you a certain position. In this court scene, Mr. Ewell is part of the lowest rank, lowest order in Maycomb, and he has to go to court because he has accused a black man of raping his daughter, Mayela. Now, you can imagine that he doesn't have the intellectual capacity or the education that really is needed if you want to understand court procedures. And also, he doesn't really know how to address the judge. He is really sort of not in his normal behavior situation. He is in a place which is a place that gives him like immediately the lower position. There is a person there in charge who is of more intellect, who is of more power in terms of the definition. The person is a judge and there are people accusing him and so on. So let's look at how he speaks. So let's ask, who has more power and why? Mr. Robert Ewell, asked Mr. Gilmer. That's my name, Captain, said the witness. Mr. Gilmer's back stiffened a little. Are you the father of Mayela Ewell? Was the next question. Well, if I ain't, I can't do nothing about it now. Her ma's dead, was the answer. Judge Taylor stirred. He turned slowly in his swivel chair and looked benignly at the witness. Are you the father of Mayela Ewell? He asked, in a way that made the laughter below us stop suddenly. Yes, sir, Mr. Ewell said meekly. Judge Taylor went on in tones of goodwill. This is the first time you've ever been in court? I don't recall ever seeing you here. At the witness's affirmative nod, he considered. Well, let's get something straight. There will be no more audibly obscene speculations on any subject from anybody in this courtroom as long as I'm sitting here. Do you understand? Mr. Ewell nodded, but I don't think he did. So, from the talk here, from the speech of Mr. Gilmer, you can clearly see that he's in a position of power. We can clearly see how he had put Mr. Ewell in his place, right? In the previous one, we saw that the laughter below us stopped suddenly. So in other words, you can most clearly see here the balance here in terms of the power of the court personnel and Mr. Ewell, who cannot really handle it. He tries to be very brave, but then he fails and he's put in his place. And also the people attending the court case, like the common folk that are sitting there laughing ha 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 at Mr. Ewell, suddenly stops, right? Because of somebody who could actually just assume his powerful position and speak in an intellectual way. So it's very clear here that you can see that language empowers. The language that people will use will reflect whether they are playing a dominant or a subservient role. We're going to look at this as well from a little extract from To Kill a Mockingbird. And we're going to look at Calpurnia here, who is from the Black community, and she is the Finch's housekeeper. Now, she virtually grew up in the Finch's house, and she can speak like them. She's been taught to read and write and so forth. However, when she goes to church and she's with her own folk, she speaks colored language, right? So let's look at what she has to say. The girls ask her, actually the two children, Scout and Jem, request to go with her to church, and then they see the strange phenomenon of her speaking colored language to her own people, whereas when they're in the house, she speaks English like them. And they say, but why, Calpurnia? Why do you do that? And she says, this is what she says. Well, in the first place, I'm black. That doesn't mean that you have to talk that way when you know better, said Jem. It's right hard to say, she said. Suppose you and Scout colored folks talk at home. It'd be out of place, wouldn't it? Now, what if I talked white folks talk at church and with my neighbors? They'd think I was putting on airs to beat Moses. But Cal, you know better, I said. It's not necessary to tell all you know. It's not ladylike. In the second place, folks don't like to have somebody around knowing more than they do. It aggravates them. So from these extracts, we can see how in To Kill a Mockingbird, language proficiency is empowering. It reflects your social standing. It reflects dominance. Whereas a lack of powerful proficiency can be debilitating. Think of Mr. Ewell. And it can also be humiliating. Think of the laughter that he got from the crowds. Until next time.